Hi, I'm Dave Dinkel. I'm here today with Nancy Dinkel. We're a couple days away from our 53rd wedding anniversary, and coincidentally today is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. So what are we doing? I'm making her work on Valentine's Day. I thought I'd do this because, frankly, I get applications daily. And on those applications, many of the questions or fears are the same thing. And what I wanted to do is kind of go over, I'm actually going to have Nancy just take apps that came in the last couple of days and read what those are, and I'm going to answer them. So, all right, dears, go ahead.
It says, a fear of mine is to sign up for a guru's program for thousands of dollars and not get the proper help or information needed to succeed.
That's a worthy fear. About 40% of the students we have paid up to $100,000 for other gurus. I say other gurus, I don't know I'm a guru, but other courses, and failed miserably. Some have been in the programs for a couple of years and still, until they came to us, they never did deals. I attribute that to support from the mentor people. We hear this all the time. Well, I have a number to call in San Diego, Utah, and when I get the guy on the phone, he says, well, that's a unique market and we don't give legal opinions. Well, I don't give legal opinions, but I know that what you need is an answer to the roadblock. And that's what you need to get. And that's what you need to be sure you're going to get if you get into one of those programs. I think there was a second thing on that.
Well, he's concerned about short sales, closing costs, major construction being needed.
Okay. So in wholesaling, you make your most money on problem properties, and major construction is one of those places you're not going to do it. All you have to do is find a buyer for it. One of the most exemplary ones that we have is burned houses. I think a few years ago we probably sold more burned houses in Florida than probably the rest of the United States. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but we did do an awful lot of them. And there's a couple types of burns, just very quickly. One's where pot on the stove catches on fire, house is full of soot and smoke, but no real serious damage. Now the other kind is, something catches on fire, typically curtains, and it spreads from room to room. The roof is impacted, and then by that time the fire people are there, and what they do is they chop through the roof. Now you have structural issues and a lot of other things. We just sold one not too long ago that almost completely burned down. It was CBS block, so the block was still in place. Student bought it for $25,000 and sold it for $50,000. And who did he sell it to? He sold it to a contractor who can come in and fix it for probably $75 or $100, sell it for another $50 or $100 higher. So you just need a buyer's list to overcome those. What was the other thing?
On that one?
Short sales.
Short sales.
Okay. So short sales are tough, and the reason they're tough is the banks have changed their attitude a few years ago. 2008 through 2011 or even 12, they were giving them away. And the banks decided we're giving them away and we're losing money to these investors. And they're in cahoots with realtors who are telling us there's a lot of damage. We're working on it to give them discounts, and then they sell them the same day for a profit. That may or may not be true, but you should be selling them as soon as possible for a profit. What the lenders decided to do was set up auction sites. And what they thought immediately was, we'll eliminate the realtors altogether, which didn't happen. But the auction sites were a magnet for people that didn't know what they were doing. And the banks have had a field day selling properties over value to people who are virtually new in the business. The other thing was closing costs.
Closing costs.
They don't matter. If you're going to make a profit on the house, you're going to have closing costs. They're a part of doing a business. If you did a delivery service and you said, well, I'm afraid of the price of gas, don't do the delivery service. It's incidental. It's part of what you do. It's a part of the cost of doing business. They amount to about 1 or 1.5% of each leg. If you're going to do an A to B and B to C closing, don't worry about them. You can always pass them on to your end buyer. I just did a property in Jacksonville with an investor. He paid $13,000. He sold it for $30,000. And he got the end buyer to pay all of his closing costs. Why? Because the end buyer was a very motivated buyer. And ironically, it was a 7.5. Do you remember my telling you?
I'm sorry.
Multifamily. Multifamily property. I think it was a 7.5. Jacksonville is an area where you can get great deals. Of course, it wasn't in move-in shape, but nonetheless, don't worry about costs, do deals.
Next one is negotiating with a seller and buyer correctly.
Okay, so even though you're going to get pages and pages of responses from sellers to your questions, the answers to give them, so on and so forth, the best thing you can do is just go in there and do it. And if you're thinking, well, I could lose a deal, you don't have a deal. What you need to go in there and do is fail forward. You always have to make some relationship with the seller. And if you do that, you'll find out that oftentimes you'll get a deal at a lower price than somebody else that offered a higher price, but just was pushy about getting it signed. So don't worry about it. The only way you're going to learn is to do it. I have students every once in a while who come in, they're not students, they come in as prospects, and they say to me, I'm afraid of this. And I sometimes get irritated, and I say to them, how'd you learn to walk? And they said, well, I don't remember, but I guess I fell down a lot of times. Yes. What'd you do? You got up and you did it. That's what you need to do here. You're going to get support, whether it's from us or somebody else. What you need to do is just do it. Fail forward.
The fear of the unknown.
Yeah. We've been in the business over 43 years now, and if we were afraid of the unknown, we'd never drive to work. The unknown for us is driving to work simply because of traffic being nasty. But we can't worry about what's going to happen in each or any deal. Every deal typically has major problems. That's how we make a lot of money. So we address those. Really, real estate investing is problem solving. When you learn that, you're going to talk to motivated sellers who want a solution rather than the most amount of money.
Uh-oh.
It's okay. Go ahead and ask. It'll stop in a minute.
That's my phone.
No, it's mine.
Oh, is it? Okay. Said, I'm reading and plugging my ears daily on what I need to do in order to become an all-star wholesaler. I've yet to prospect my leads due to insecurity issue of messing up or making a grave mistake. I have a mentor. A while back he sent me a text and said, here's your script for soft sell and so on. I thought to myself, this just doesn't sound right.
Well, you gave me a whole bunch of them there, but if you're paralyzed by fear, which is typically the case, and one of the other apps, I don't know if we'll cover it here, the person said to me, I've been studying for 1.5 years and I can't pull the trigger. And the reason is he's afraid. There's about 22 what I call absolute fears that keep people from actually getting into real estate investing. And in this question I have about what are your fears, I think we'll probably have one that says I have no fears. I am fearless. Well, the question is, then why aren't you doing anything? Because you are afraid. You're afraid of failure. We're afraid of failure for a couple of reasons, mostly because we don't want other people to look at us as failures. But in any successful program, not just in real estate, you have to fail many, many times before you succeed. The more you fail, the closer you are to success. I know it sounds cliche, but it also means you get experience you wouldn't have otherwise had. The 43 years that we've each had, over 85 years of experience in real estate investing, we have to come to grips with something new pretty much on a daily basis, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, this one is where to begin, when should I begin, the risks versus rewards, and overpaying for a property, and finding buyers and
Oh,
sellers.
yeah.
There's
I
a lot.
remember all those. But let's do them one at a time.
Where to begin and when should I begin?
Okay, so you need to begin at the beginning, and the beginning is whether you take a course. I hate to say watch YouTube videos. Don't. And if you go onto the online blogs, I always wonder to myself, don't people have better things to do than sit there and answer 10,000 blogs and become a superstar blogger? I don't know what they're doing, but what you need to do is look to earn and make money as quickly as possible. Typically, when you don't have money, that's wholesaling. It's very easy to learn how to do wholesaling. You're going to fail miserably to start with. I hope you don't get a deal right off the bat because you're going to think it's easy. It's not easy. It requires persistence, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. And you're going to become an Olympian if you stick to it. I've said this 1,000 times. If you haven't heard it, we have two success levels in our program. One is absolutely dead zero, and those people are the quitters, and I can't help them. The other ones are very successful, and they're often running away on their own, and you'll see many of those on our videos. What was the second one?
Risks versus rewards.
Okay, let's talk about serious risks here. One of the questions I oftentimes get is, I don't want to bleed to death in a property, then don't rehab. Wholesale. Well, what's my risk in wholesaling? It's very, very simple. Whatever your earnest money deposit is your risk in the deal. I had one of the students was saying to me that he's tenacious in following up with the realtor, and the realtor said, I'm not showing it to my seller, not going to show the offer. Now, legally he has to. Does it mean he's going to? No, he'd be embarrassed by the offer. Why? Because he induced the seller to believe that he could sell it way above market value. I mean, it was ridiculous that he listed it for. So if he goes back to his seller and says, you know, these are the only offers we're getting at half the price we asked for, what's it going to look like? So what did my student do? Went around him and called the seller and said, here, I'm trying to get this offer into you. And the seller said, I'm not that interested in it. And he called the listing agent. And the listing agent, of course, called my student back and screaming at him said, I'm going to sue you. And the student said to me, can I get sued? I said, anybody can sue anybody, but if he ever calls you back or you want to call him back, ask him what he's going to sue you for. He has no right to sue you. And if in fact he does, the most important thing you can ever do is countersue for a ton of money. And you'll, trust me, you'll either get him off the case or you'll get money.
Overpaying for a property.
Okay. If you're going to get properties, there's going to be times when you overpay for them. The key to getting out of the overpayment that you've done is do not close. That's your biggest risk, your earnest money deposit. But if you do it properly in your inspection period, you just give it back. In wholesaling, if we can't sell it during the inspection period and it's not a great deal where we want to close on it, we give it back. We take no market risk and no risk of our earnest money deposit.
Okay, finding buyers and sellers.
Great. Okay. What tends to happen in our mentoring program is we go through a routine and we use our buyers list to sell properties for our students locally. Out of area and out of state, we don't have a buyers list. So we show them how to build a buyers list very quickly, and I actually have an emergency sales kit, as I call it, that you can start marketing your property as soon as you have it under contract. Do not market a property unless you have a signed contract by your seller. That gives you an equitable interest in the property and the right to market it. Now, that right doesn't extend to listing it on the MLS unless you're a licensed agent or you have a licensed agent do it and you have a contract, a licensing agreement. So now let's talk about the buyer's list. Sellers, maybe I need to change the tone. Sellers are pretty much standard. They fall into categories. They should be motivated if, bankruptcies, foreclosures, various other things. But your buyers are your power in the industry. If you learn how to literally build a very strong buyers list, you can control the sales in your county without ever owning a property, without ever seeing a property, and without ever putting an escrow deposit up. And we have students that do that all the time. Why? Because their buyers list is gigantic. Now, what's a buyer? It's a person that actually has spent money and closed on a property. They're in the public record. You can find them with the letters LLC, corporation, LP, and trust, not living trust or revocable trust, but land trust or 123 Main Street trust. Those are corporate entities, and those guys can't borrow money except for hard money. Hopefully they're continuous buyers. If you find one of them in the public record, you can see every property he owns, and you can get them on your buyers list in time. The other thing we do with buyers is don't do the ones at the club where you go in and you do a card swap. It's really, you say to yourself, well, somewhere down the road they may be a buyer. Well, you're going to have a big buyers list of people that don't do anything. Your open rate on your buyers list, if it's truly a good buyers list, should be 20% or more. Otherwise, you're going to have fluff on the buyers list. They're going to waste your time.
Lack of experience.
Everybody starts out with zero experience in the same place. So do you never start because you're afraid of not getting experience? Experience is failing forward, and if you don't fail forward, you will never be successful in anything you do in life. So start. Now, one of the things we had here is, when do you start? I have automatic designations on my phone for when incoming wires, and that's what you're hearing. I'm having incoming wires or outgoing wires or whatever else for my transactional funding. So when do you start? What's holding you back? You can study the rest of your life and never make a choice, or you can get into it and seriously get into starting to be a real estate investor. And I hear this question, well, I don't know what I don't know. We talked about it. Neither do we. If you have a mentor that truly answers your questions, he's there for you, and he's going to work you over those things. Our mentoring program lasts for a year, but the reality is, how many people do we have in that have been in for many years? A number of them.
A number, yes.
And they're very successful. And why do they come to me? They trust my judgment, I guess, is what it comes down to. So, fail forward, get started. The only limitation is your fear of, what's ahead. And look, I think you stand a bigger chance of having something happen to you driving every day than you will find in real estate investing.
Want another one?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm on a roll, don't stop me now.
Fear of running into a scam.
Okay. And there's a lot of them out there, and it bothers me a lot. One of the reasons, Nan and I have been retired 3 times, and one of the reasons we came back in 2008, we sold everything we had in 2006, did a couple of deals in 2007, and realized the market in our area at least was collapsing, literally collapsing. And we decided, hey, we don't need this, we're out. And then in 2008, I had an opportunity to come back in, and I did. And in the end of 2008, I started a full-blown mentoring program. And I can see from the comments you guys make and from the inquiring minds, I'm going to call them, that frankly, many of you have been burned to the tune of anywhere from $15,000 to $100,000, and you're very, very skeptical. And I don't blame you. What I've done is I've published everything I can on my website, actually talking to students, seeing deals on my transactional funding website. Now I have over 50 deals where you can see the A to B and B to C, but you're still skeptical. And I think what it is, you're a fear. You have a fear of not being scammed, but being taken advantage of and not knowing it until it's too late. That can happen to you anywhere in life. And if I have to defer to the divorce rate being 50%, it wasn't a scam when you got into it. It just failed because it didn't work out. And if you're going to go into something, I suggest what you do is your own research on the people involved. We recently had a speaker who was coming to the club, and we Googled him, and the guy's an outright fraud. So, I said to my partner, do not allow him in the club because he hadn't seen what was online. But not everything online can be true, but when you see it from a number of sources and you ask a number of people about it, be careful, but don't let it stop you from achieving your greatness. You really, every one of you, have an innate ability to achieve greatness, doing what you like to do. I hope it's real estate for you. It may not be. But if you don't go after what you want to go after, you're going to be stuck in the rut you're in now. And if you're comfortable in your rut, stop watching the video. Go back to the rut. Otherwise, take chances. Real estate investing is not fatal. If you said to me, I can lose money, you can lose money. Nan and I have lost money. And I'm going to blame this one on Nan. We bought a house that Nan fell in love with. I mean, it was magnificent. It was in a gated, guarded community. The thing that I hate the most, HOAs, so on and so forth. And it was in that 2007 period when the market was falling like crazy. I got a fantastic deal on it, but we didn't like the neighbors, didn't like the neighborhood after we got in, so we sold it. We took a substantial loss on it. People say to me, well, how could you move forward? Because we make profits on almost everything we do, but we have taken losses. If you're afraid of taking a loss in life, lock yourself in the house and hope that somebody brings you food. You're going to be taking losses. Things are going to happen to you. You have to move forward. The way you achieve greatness is to do whatever it takes to make the greatness. Now, I've heard this silly comment sometimes, well, just to be a real estate investor, I'm not giving up my family, I'm not giving up my religion, I'm not giving up, playing with my kids at night. You don't have to. Those are excuses for people that are failures in life and want to say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything else. Well, good. And if you're happy doing that, keep doing it. But what if you could do that on a magnification of 10, or you could do many more things because you had the income? If that's not viable for you because you don't believe in yourself, then don't do it. Stay where you are. Stay happy.
Joining a program that claims to mentor with a high cost but really teaches nothing.
There's lots of those out there. You've heard me refer to them a little bit earlier. But there's a ton of them out there, and you have to be careful. Now, I talk about this all the time. I don't have a lot of students. I don't brag that I have 10,000 students or 20 or whatever else. I don't know how many I have exactly, but it's not that many compared to what the guys do that rush into town from the radio for 2 days, come to the 3-day seminar for $150 or no dollars whatsoever. And what you get is a pounding for how to increase your credit card limits, get yourself in debt that you're probably not going to be able to get out of. And then, oh yeah, by the way, you want somebody to talk to, that's another $30,000. Nobody can guarantee success, but my experience with the people that come to us from many of those programs is they don't get anything. They get tons and tons of materials. What's ironic is when I say to them, what did you get out of the course? They have a whole wall full of materials if they got books and tapes. The most recent thing is to download them, and they tell me it's the greatest website in the world. So how long have you been doing it? 3 years. How many deals have you done? I've never made an offer. You've never made an offer in 3 years. How do you expect to get a deal if you don't make offers? Well, none of them fit. I have a sheet. I got this checklist, and this checklist says, if every box has a checklist in it, buy it, it's a deal. Well, I hate to tell you, but that's exactly what happens. It'll never be a deal, and if it is, you're not going to get 2 in a row or 3. Our goal is really to show you how to create a business in a box and be successful wherever. If they dropped you by parachute into another city, could you do the same thing we do here? Yes. Could you do 100 deals a year? Yes, but not immediately. One of the things I see, I ask how many deals a year would you like to do? And I see some really outrageous numbers, like 100. How many deals would you like to do your first year? 100. How many deals have you done? 0. Okay, how about second year? 250. All right, let me explain to you what 100 deals looks like. Now, this is going to be different in different cities, but 100 deals at $1,500 a piece in profit is $1.5 million. No. 100 deals at $1,500 is $150,000. The reason I had to think about that was because I had someone come to me that's local, and he said, I've done over 100 deals. And I said, great. And he said to me, no, it's not so great. I only made $1,500 on each one of the deals, roughly. And I wrote a insight that said, how can you do 150 deals and be a loser? And he came back, he knew who I was talking about. He gets all outraged about, you talked about me. Well, I talked about not him, but what he had done or not done. And the reality was, you can't make a living making a wholesale profit of $1,500. I just did 20 recent deals on my transactional funding website, and I showed that the average profit was $21,000 and change. Now, on 100 deals, that's $2 million. So if you want to do 100 deals and you're going to do $10,000 a deal, it's $1 million. Do students do that? Yes, but they don't do it in their first year. It typically takes 3, 4, 5 years for them to get to that. So what I'm trying to separate here is the reality. You got to get your first deal to begin with. I tell people, do not quit your job until you've done at least 3 to 5 deals. Everybody wants to quit their job before they get anything. And I suggest you start making money first before you start spending it, for one thing. And also, you don't quit until you know what you have. And it doesn't take you forever to do this. It does take you a persistence to keep doing it, especially when you're failing. So don't give up. And be careful of what I do.
No.
Okay.
Next one, I'm concerned this program requires available full-time schedule.
Okay. Some of our most successful students have been full-time workers. They had full-time jobs, and in a number of cases, they had 2 babies, 2 children less than 5 years old. Talk about a full-time job and a full-time job at home. How did they do it? They very carefully managed their time. You have to make phone calls. I'm telling you that ahead of time. You cannot do it by email. People will tell you can do it by email. You cannot. Oh, you may get lucky and do a deal or 2, but if you're going to do 10 or 20 or more deals, you got to be able to talk to people and not be afraid of doing it. How did they do that? They did it on their lunch hour. They went out to their car, brought their lunch with them, made their phone calls. They put in their offers at night or early in the morning, and they studied. You see this all the time with single mothers with 1 or 2 children going to school at night and working full time. How do they do it? They just do it. They make time to do it. How important is it to you? If it's important enough, you'll make the time. If it's not important enough, don't start and don't spend the money to get into a course you're not going to use. That's the biggest waste in the world. Oftentimes at the club meetings, not so much ours, but any of the club meetings I've ever gone to, and they have a speaker selling a national product, people buy the products because of the power of the speaker, not because of the power of the products. They don't use them. And they complain about, but his course didn't work for me. And it could be that you never broke the plastic on it to even try it. So I'm not, look, I'm an old school guy. I'm, believe it or not, pretty conservative. When I got out of college at chemical engineering, I went into being a stock and commodity broker, and I was the wild guy in the office. Everybody came to me to do trading, and we did very well until a buyer of a stock or commodity wouldn't sell it, and it went to hell. And I say that because a lot of them go to zero. And what I saw happen is people would make money consistently, but they'd have a loss and they'd hold the loser. And they'd do the same thing again and hold the second loser. And I had a woman come to me in 1968, and she said to me, I've been a very successful tape trader. At that time, tape ran in the offices. I was at Merrill Lynch. And she'd sit there and trade all day long. She was making money. But she put away 8 stocks over the course of 2 years, and they all went belly up. And everything she did to make money. Okay, what's the point of this? Look, you've got to move forward, and you have to admit that you've done something wrong. And get out. That's all there is to it. Take losses if you have to. Sorry.
All right, fear of approaching homeowners.
Okay. So homeowners are people just like you. You know, they get in their pants the same way each day. And you're going to say, well, I don't know what to say. Well, you should have a script with all the objections, with the answers, and you should study that beforehand. And what you'll find out if you just talk to them, the most important question you can ask them is, why are you selling? That simple question has made us millions of dollars, because we can then tell, what is the time frame that you're motivated for? If they say, look, I got an offer 6 years ago for $300,000 and I don't want to sell for less than that, you're wasting your time. Probably even if you're an agent, because the market's now 150. They're not going to get 300. They're not motivated to do that. But if he says to you, by the way, next Thursday is the tax deed sale, and I had a call today from a student who said, that tax deed sale's tomorrow, how do I handle this? So I said, here's exactly what you do. He will get that property and he will triple his money in it, I'm sure. So it requires practice. And the best thing you can do is listen. Stop going through, I'm Dave Dinkel, I do 150 properties a year, I do this, I do that, we've done this. We create new neighborhoods.
Uh-oh.
It's incoming money, that's all I can tell you. Don't. Talk about them. Talk about their problem and a solution to their problem. We've had astronomical wholesale deals simply because we didn't talk price. You cannot be competitive price-wise as a wholesaler and make money consistently. I'm going to shut
It's
it
like
off.
a call to arms.
You want to shut it off for me? I'll
Sure.
hold your papers.
The last one I have here is not knowing if I'm going to be properly supported.
Okay. Look, if any of you guys have called me, one of the things you understand is I answer my phone. And I hear this every once in a while. I can't believe that Dave answered his phone. Well, who else would answer it? Is it because I'm not so busy? No, it's because I've learned somewhat how to manage time, maybe not perfectly, but I like to talk to the people that call, and I do. And some of you have already called me and talked to me. And look, you have to make a decision in your life about, if it's trusting people. Look, how much can you get hurt? Let's be realistic. It's money. It can be replaced. You have a life ahead of you. And I'm not saying try high-priced courses and stuff like that. I'm saying you need a comfort level, and you need to speak to somebody other than the salesman who's trying to close you on, if you do it today, we'll give you a $5,000 discount off the $55,000 price. It's not what it's about. You shouldn't have to raise your credit card limit and do that. You've got to be very, very, very committed and strong in your own will that you can do this. And what does that look like? It's not being a dreamer and saying, I know I can do that. It's being, I know I can do that. Where do I start? And do it. Get started on it. Every once in a while I have somebody come back and say to me, there's not enough information in your material. Well, there's too much information in my material. I have courses on everything you can think of because I don't want you buying more courses. That's our front doorbell. Somebody's at our front doorbell ring. I think it's great. If you guys aren't online with your bank accounts, you should be. One of the major closing agents here in Florida in the Tampa area had their bank account hacked, and I went to wire them funds. And I asked the question, what are the last 4 digits of your bank account? And they came back to me and told me it was not where I was going to wire the funds. So what had happened is Chinese, Russians, Ukrainians had put in a different wire instruction set. I could have wired it to someplace else in the world had I used the old set. Always check when you go to wire funds.
All right, we have 2 more. I will be taken advantage of in my ignorance.
Okay, what you need to understand is if you have somebody who's actually going to coach you, whether it's by email or live, an accountability partner, somebody you actually speak to, you will know pretty quickly. And I can't tell you ahead of time who's good, who's bad, or who's ugly. But again, remember, guys, this is not the end of your life if you make a mistake. Walt Disney, I understand, went bankrupt 4 times, and the little mouse that he created has done pretty well since then. They just raised the rates again. But what if Walt had said, or what if Walt's wife had said, no more? You're not doing that mouse thing again because it didn't work. We lost everything we had. You have to have a clear vision and focus of where you want to be and what you want to do. Once you have that, I call it reverse engineering. I reverse you backwards into how many offers a day do you have to make, what's your success level in the offer, so on and so forth. You need to take action. You need to step forward. Do we only have, you've got to have more than that.
Well, this one is, he watches, goes through the internet, checking everything on investing and wholesaling. He says, what I constantly see is I need a mentor. And I feel that is exactly what I need, a genuine mentor who will push me off the analysis cliff into the real world of real estate investing.
The analysis, paralysis of analysis is a very common thing because it's a fear you're going to do something wrong. Remember, I gave you the biggest clue in the world. You have an inspection period. During the inspection period, everything goes. So if you just make offers and you get those accepted, you can then do the analysis of paralysis, overcome that, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to say this to you and you're not going to believe it. It doesn't matter because if you can't sell the property, I don't care if you're an appraiser. When appraisers come into the mentoring program, I tell them ahead of time, it's not going to help you. And they say to me, I know exactly what every house in that neighborhood sold for, and I know this and I know that. And the reality is it doesn't matter if you can't sell the property you have. And what people say to me is, I need to understand how to make the perfect offer. Well, the perfect offer is anything that gets you a contract and then sort it out after the fact. Because there is no perfect offer. If you get an offer accepted, if I say to Nan, will you take 100 and she says yes, what have I done? I made the perfect offer and I've over-offered. I've offered too much money. But in our realm of wholesaling, it doesn't matter. There's two options, one of which is get out during the inspection period or risk your earnest money deposit. It'll give you a longer time to market the property. That's all you're going to risk. And if you say to me, well, they'll sue me. No, it'd be silly, because if you read the contract you have with your listing agent and your original seller, it stipulates that the limit of your liability is the earnest money deposit. So what are they going to sue you for? Contractual dispute? It's in your favor. Now, I don't want to give you legal advice, I just did, so to speak, but I always want you to check with an attorney before you start doing these things. And if you're using a guru contract that somebody has given you, better make sure that it has the limit of liability as your earnest money deposit and other clauses that will protect you. What do you got?
Says, I've gotten advice from several sources mentioning I should have at least 30 to 50,000 of cash ready to invest, and until I have this amount, I shouldn't even think about investing.
When prospective students come in, I never have ever asked them, how much money do you have? After I know they're coming into the system, I will say to them, by the way, do you have any money? And some of them have said to me, I have $70,000. That's gigantic, because we do the deals with no money. So to say that you need 30 to 50,000, it's, well, if you're going to buy $12,000 houses, you might have enough money. But we don't do them with money. If you look on the transactional funding fl.com website I have, you'll see how we do those deals with no money. It bothers me. That's what I'm a little frustrated about, because when people tell you that, they either don't know what they're talking about or they don't want you to know the truth and what happens. If you're going to buy houses and you're going to rehab those houses, or you're going to keep them as rentals, you need money. Money is very, very important, but not until you learn how to get deals. Because if you have money, it's stupid. I call it stupid money. You start making mistakes because, I have the money. I'll just go ahead and buy it. I don't want to pay points to a hard money lender or, high interest rate. Well, you're not going to be in it forever, and if you are, then you're going to bleed to death. You've done something wrong. The most successful students I have as they graduate into other things, from wholesaling into, for example, lipstick on a pig or rehabbing, they learn they need to continue to wholesale to have a cash flow. One of my students said to me a couple months ago, I now have $15,000 a month in interest payments on my rehabs, and I've run out of cash, and I have over $350,000 in net profits coming, but they're not closing for a month to 2 months. What do? They borrowed the money to carry them for another 3 months at $15,000 a month. They sold the properties, made the profit, and she said to me, I'll never do that again. I'm going to go back to wholesaling now. That's not true. She came back to wholesaling, and what she did is she's keeping the best properties to rehab, but she's continuing to wholesale. These are all obstacles that you can overcome, and the people who are successful just did it. That's all. They just stood up, did it, and the consequences were whatever they were. They went on to the next one. The worst case scenario, when a student comes to me and it's got tax liens and code liens and pit bull liens and millions of dollars worth of liens on a property that's $40,000. If we can't negotiate them down to nothing, virtually, we go on to the next one. It really doesn't matter. Real estate's a renewable resource and it'll go on forever. Nan's bumping my leg because she wants me to stop talking.
Okay. I want real answers and a real system with the support I need to actually do a deal and continue to do deals once I learn and succeed.
Okay, so we didn't last this long in real estate investing by not having a system. And if you said to me, what's the best system? The best system is to fail forward, go in and make mistakes, learn from the mistakes, and just do it. We have a business in a box, a systematized program, exactly how to do it. It's automated. All those things come together. But if you don't use it or do it, it's meaningless. I always say that I help the students get to where they are, but they have to do the heavy lifting. That means you have to talk to people, whether it's on the phone, whether you see them face to face. And if that's a big fear for you, the best thing you can do is do it. Go ahead and do it over and over again. I've said this to Nan for many years. There are a lot of things, you have a little list of agenda of things that need to be done, and some of those things I don't even want to do. I mean, I just say to myself, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get a 20-minute lecture on why he can't do anything, and it just bothers me. So what do I do with that? All of those things that I don't want to do, telephone calls, speaking to people, I do those first. They go to the top of my list, and I get them over with. What I found out is that 99.9% of the time, it was nowhere near the expectation I had. And the 0.1% that it actually does happen, it was nowhere near the expectation I thought it could be. So fail forward by doing the things you don't want to do daily and do it first.
Okay, the last one that I have here, not sure that it will work.
Okay. So if you're not sure, it won't, because you have to be sure that you are in control, that you have everything you need. If you're going to be, look, everything you ever need is on YouTube videos. You can sort out the truth from the cannon fodder, so to speak. Look, I can't tell you that things don't work because they've worked amazingly well for us. They've worked extraordinarily well for students whose IQ level is at best average. They're nicest guys, nicest girls in the world, and they become very much nicer when they make a lot of money. And there's no reason anyone can do that. Look, some of the students I've had have speech impediments where it's nearly impossible to understand what they say. They're not foreign languages, they're speech impediments. And I have to admit that one time I said, I can't take you in the program. And she said to me, why? And I said, I think you're going to have a very serious problem with people understanding what you're saying. And she said to me, that's my choice.
You get emotional, huh? He has a passion to make students successful, and that's why he does this.
She's a multimillionaire. 5 years.
We still work with her, you know.
I still can't understand her. But it doesn't matter.
So I think we covered enough objections or worries and things. There'll be more, but I hope this was helpful to people that are considering getting into real estate investing. And you can see the passion that he has for it. Sorry for the interrupting phone messages.